challenge.
I think you're right there, Martin. I've been thinking along the same lines myself. But I have to say, looking very, very good now, isn't it, GT? And this weekend, I think, like at Le Mans last year, could be the making of GT racing in Grand Am.
Change in leadership. This is now the GT class leader. Boris Said leads GT. Robin Liddell back on pit road. Is he, or has he just made a pass in traffic, Boris, while we were... No, there is Robin, just a couple of cars behind. Yep. So there is the Camaro, but that means that Boris has used the traffic well, and there is nothing wrong with the speed of that BM.
What we just saw there, Boris had actually taken the lead last time they crossed the line. Robin then got himself on top of Boris going around the West NASCAR banking, but he couldn't hold it going down to the bus stop.
Yeah, I was looking at other things at the time, I'm afraid, as so often is the case in the 24-hour race. They got, I think they have got the... Is that Patrick Long coming up behind them in the prototype car? I think it is the car that's now trying to catch the lead pair. Pat Long in third place in GT, but in DP, but there is your GT leader.
Pat Long's second now, in fact. He's just moved up past Antonio Garcia.
So he has.
Yeah. So Max Angolelli leads from Pat Long, Antonio Garcia, AJ Allmendinger in fourth, and Oswaldo Negri Jr. in fifth place. Everything to play for. We have at the moment got, just seeing how many cars are on the lead lap. In fact, all the way down to 11th, are still on the lead lap in Daytona Prototype.
Well, let's talk about that car that's in fourth position then, because we haven't mentioned that. That's AJ Allmendinger started another Michael Shank Racing car. This is one of two run for the Curb Agajanian team. Car 6, AJ Allmendinger, Justin Wilson, another of the 19 British drivers. Okay, he lives in Colorado, but then, you know, you live close to where you work, and he works in North America. They share that with Mike McDowell, and the other Curb Agajanian car has now vanished from my eyes, but they have got a couple under the Michael Shank Racing banner. I think Michael Shank Racing operating at least 5 cars in the prototype class at the moment.
Yeah, that second in 2006 is number 6 car where we just looked at a moment ago with Allmendinger, Mike McDowell, Justin Wilson on board. That car sponsored by Continental. Here's Will Turner then.
It was a very strong one, obviously. It seems to be working out, but are you surprised at the pace that you guys have found in the race, or should I say the pace that the Porsches seem to have lost in the race?
Yeah, you know, we in practice and stuff, and even in qualifying, we were like, what's going on? We have a slow car compared to the Porsches. But, you know, they were on their qualifying motors, I guess, because all the Porsches last night were in the garage getting their endurance motors. The BMWs had the same motor. We can run practice, we can run qualifying, and hopefully we can run the whole race on one motor, because the BMW power is that strong, that reliable. You know, it's a long way to go. This is, we're an hour and a half into the race. We got 22 or 23 to go, so we're hoping that we can just stay steady and hope we have this good pace all night.
Obviously, the other GT cars, the Porsches, the Mazdas, they're certainly fast as well. Where are you guys on fuel mileage compared to those cars in the Camaro?
You know, we really don't know yet. We know that we set this car up for the long run. These Continental tires like the smooth driving style of Boris right now. So we're basically just getting into a groove and finding it. You know, I'm sure other people are doing the same thing. They're finding their pace, and we'll see in the morning what happens. Who's got the speed at the end?
Looking for Boris Said, Bill Auber, and 2 BMW stalwarts to bring BMW another victory here in the Rolex 24.
Well, we just saw the 86 Mitcham Motorsport car at a standstill again. It was off on the first lap. They've just swapped over. Randy Popes with the second driver, Cooper McNeil. It's Cooper at the helm. Joey Atterbury, Derek Wittis, and Billy Johnson must be starting to wonder if they're going to get a go in this thing. What happens here? Gets into the hairpin. It's got no drive. Yeah, the only thing that was keeping it running there was its momentum, so it's just plain died on him now. Has he accidentally managed to knock off the ignition switch, or is something worse? They'll be rescued, and facing backwards is the 8. That's Ryan Diel's car, the Starworks Mazda Riley Ford. Now Ryan started it.
Mike Forrest on board.
Okay, Mike Forrest in that car.
He's got his shortcut the chicane, and that normally deposits you right in the middle. Look at the dirt that's been dropped.
Yeah. He went sideways through there. That will have been a dramatic, clean race suit demanding moment there. He's just come in a fraction offline on the outside and braked straight across the grass. And it has been pretty damp over the last couple of weeks. It was cold and wet in the testing.
Locked to front there.
Look at that. Snow plows his way through. Woomph! Oh, close moment for the second and third place battle in the GT class. You see that coming around the nose. There's the Porsche. Great dive out of the way by your own Blakemolen.
Oh dear.
Great reactions.
This number 8 car, incidentally, fastest car in the test. The Raw before the Snore. Oh, did I say Raw before the Snore? The Raw before the Rolex. Someone who doesn't like DP said that the other day. It's stuck in my mind. And, so that car was running in 13th place, now dropping down the order dramatically. And look at the mess. Are they going to give us a full course yellow for that?
Well, they may do. And the sister car is in, the 7 Starworks Mazda car.
Doug Peterson on board.
Well, he took over from starting driver Jan Halen. Now, have they come in because they think there'll be a caution, or have they come in because they think they might have caused a caution? This is the other Michael Shank Racing Curb Motorsport car. Well, now, we weren't expecting to see this car on pit road either.
No.
The 6, AJ Allmendinger, Mike McDowell, we heard was on board that car, didn't we? Or was AJ still on board it? Anyway, out they go.
It was AJ. I don't know, as he goes out, will the transponder change? No, it's staying with
And look, that grass is causing lots of problems. That was the 07 Banner Racing Camaro that Ollie Gavin started. That's going to be like that for laps. That's going to take a good 10 minutes. And of course, what they'll do is they'll clean the middle bit, and all the gubbins will stay on the outside still.
But what they're picking up on their tyres, nobody knows.
Well, it's only a bit of grass and mud. I tell you what, 5 seconds at 200 plus miles an hour on the banking will get shot at that, won't it?
Now, when we heard Will Turner being interviewed, very interesting point. He said these Continental tyres like to be driven smoothly. That's talking for GTs, of course. Nice, a very good point, that. And Boris and there we go, just picking up your point. Yeah, they're going to let the track clean itself, aren't they? But Boris and Bill, of course, both and that's why he spun. He got it all over his rear tyres. Yeah. Boris and Bill, very, very smooth drivers and suiting their style. And I guess that's what is putting them up the front of the field. Where they're leading at the moment? Yes, still leading from Robin Liddell. So we haven't got Porsches, haven't got Ferraris, haven't got Mazdas leading. We've got BMW from Camaro.
Max Angelelli, the outright leader. Boris said, and BMW still at the head of the GT class. Porsche, as ever, playing a waiting game. And in the back of the Porsche garage, when we saw Jörg Bergmeister earlier, you saw just about every Porsche face from the last 15 or 20 years. Hadn't seen Norbert Singer yet, but Alwyn Springer, for many years, the head of Porsche Motorsport North America. Alwyn told me 8 years ago he was retiring, and Mrs. Springer had a list of decorating duties a mile long for him. I told her at the time they would never get started, and that has proved to be the case. Retirement just means you wear a different shirt when you go to the races for Porsche. Yeah. Although with Norbert Singer, he has officially retired, I'm sure, and yet he still wears full team outfits.
As you know, last 2 years he's won the Le Mans Series GT title with Farnbacher.
With the Porsche teams, exactly right.
Exactly. So that's the 53 car. Ken Dobson in the TRG Nado Motorsports Porsche. TRG have got the most cars entered numerically, 6 of them this year under Kevin Buckler, the man who came to the Daytona 24 Hours and won it outright in 2005 with a Porsche 911.
Yeah,
I mean that really upset Grandam. That's when the rot set in, and they suddenly decided DPs are going to win in future. They pegged back all the GT cars and they gave these ones more power.
Well, Kevin's a handy GT racer. He's kind of retired from driving himself now to run this burgeoning program that's the Racers Group in sports cars and also in NASCAR racing. But he had Timo Bernhardt and Jörg Bergmeister there in a factory Porsche-built GT3 RS. It was hardly going to be slow, was it? But you're right, outright win for a 911. That's as bad as an outright win for a Viper and a Corvette, but at least they were proper American muscle cars, not some European sports racers. So that allowed the DP cars a bit more rein to go quicker.
I should have said 2003, and who was one of his drivers? Jörg Bergmeister.
Jürgen Timo.
Along with Timo and Michael Schromm of the United States. We don't hear of Michael anymore, but the other 3 still going strong.
And in fact, that TRG car was bearing livery of Adobe Road Winery. That's another of Kevin's businesses. TRG essentially is based around the Sonoma Valley and up in the North Wine area of Northern California. And Adobe Road Winery is Kevin's own vineyard. And the Racers Group, well, he started that on his driveway when he was doing a regular job, breaking making and selling parts off-road Porsches, started getting into selling bits for racing Porsches, braking racing Porsches. Before he knew it, he was running a racing car, then a racing team, now a racing empire with a foot in Grand Am and a foot in NASCAR.
Yeah, his wife very much a part of the race team as well. They run it as a partnership in much the same way that Sylvain Tremblay, who is the man here, SpeedSource's team. He and his wife Carol ran together. Carol very sadly killed in a road accident in 2009. Team came back and won the GT in tribute to her that year, but great loss in racing. And of course the year before that we'd lost Paul Newman, who was another mainstay of the 24. This looks like a straight puncher, but it hasn't really done a lot of good to the rear bodywork, has it? Jonathan Bomarito in that SpeedSource car, Sylvain Tremblay's car, and another straight on at the bus stop.
And another British driver in that team as well, Adam Christodoulou. His first appearance as far as I'm aware, and Robin Liddell going very slowly in the Camaro.
Just straight line the bus stop.
Oh, so he has, yes, he's got to stop and go. Sorry, I was looking up and then look back down again. See, this is what happens when you're a kid and you're looking at Murray Walker and he's missing it and you're shouting at him, Murray, it's a Minardi, he's just gone off. That's because he's looking at a piece of paper away from the screen.
Yeah,
that's
but
what happens all the time.
Martin Brundle should be helping him on that then, but Martin's here, so he can't. Anyway, if you're listening, Murray, grand to see you around still. We look forward to seeing you at Goodwood again this year, doing your usual. And Jonathan Bomarito then trying to get that 70 SpeedSource car back. I don't think SpeedSource are going to win this year. They've had a good run of wins with the Mazdas, but it's looking more and more unlikely. If you've got a Ganassi car or a SpeedSource Mazda, the race is going absolutely nowhere.
0-2 here with Dario Franchitti now at the helm. Took over from Scott Dixon at their first stop, and it's coming crawling in with a right rear puncture. That's the second for this car.
Yeah, that car's in 16th at the moment, 2 laps down on the leaders. Of course, that's the one they had to change the gearbox cluster on. Amazing.
No, 0-1 had the gearbox, 0-2 it picked up a puncture when Scott was at the helm, and it's got another one. And Robin Liddell is in pit road. He was coming through slowly.
I wonder if he lost his brakes going into the
straight line the bus stop for a reason, and the 2 car with a second puncture. Now this is half a dozen punctures in the first hour. More punctures equals more broken bodywork, equals more debris on the track, and so punctures breed punctures in the same way that caution flags interbreed amongst each other. But you know, tyres are always going to be a factor. First time race, first time tyre supplier, not even remotely suggesting that Continentals are not going to last well, but it means that there are unknowns for the team, and it raises all sorts of questions. There weren't major tyre dramas in the Raw before the 24, 3 days of testing, well, 2 days of testing and 1 day of rain pretty much, but and now it's a lot hotter, 70 degrees, and going to be a hot weekend.
The Camaro stalled, but just trying to push it out. It's stalled.
Well, they have to start it under its own power, I think, here, so it's got to start up again, so they can get the slave battery on it, get it fired, make sure it's going to run, then switch it off. It's got to start on onboard power.
Yeah, what they're doing to just push it to make sure that the clutch bites, that's all. But
now, is that Robin?
It's Robin's car, but I think he's just probably changed driver. He's been in that car for an hour and 40 minutes. I think he probably made a driver change. It's falling down the order, though, obviously a long way. And Jeroen Bleekemolen moves up into second place in Porsche, with Dominic Farnbacher right in his tail. Andrew Davis then in the Brumos Racing Porsche in fourth, and Dame Cameron best of the Mazdas. That's the Dempsey Racing Mazda. They've got a problem here, look.
Yeah, I think that's Ronnie Bramer at the wheel, in fact. The younger of the 2 of our Danish drivers, and there is a caution on the race course, and wave bys going on as well as they try and organise the field to restart the race here. So there is the leader, the 10 car of our outright leader, the SunTrust car, with the pole in the race, or the lead in the race, and in the queue there, the Flying Lizards car of Pat Long in second place.
Nordic Juniors touch down in Estonia, where they aim to stake a claim. Ski jump, cross country and Nordic combined. Real tests of courage for the young and the brave. Nordic Junior World Ski Championships. Ski jumping tomorrow, live on Eurosport 2.
Trouble in the Camaro camp. Brian Till is down there. Maybe we'll get a report in a minute or two, Mark, but the car came in slowly, having, it seemed, overshot the bus stop, potentially overshot the bus stop on purpose. I'm trying to recognise, is that Jan Magnussen in the car, or is that Jan Halen?
Well, they had a rear wheel off, and I got the hood up, Halen. So not looking good. Brian is down there just trying to get some information. If we hear from him, we'll try and throw to him down there, but not good. Robin Liddell taking the lead on only the third lap of the race in this car, having started from 6th. A great job the Flying Scotsman did there, and we then riding on board at the moment.
Well, we surmised that maybe the reason it went straight through the bus stop might have been a brake problem. Don't normally lift the hood for a brake problem. You'd be looking at taking the wheels off of the calipers, so it seems slightly more go than woe, their trouble department.
Still absolutely filthy through the bus stop there, but as you said, they've now carved a line through there, and all following the safety car, the pace car I should call it here. And those of you who have any interest in BMWs, look at this, a 1 Series M Coupe, a car you have not yet seen. It's not going on sale till May. This is the first public appearance of that car. Cracking little car, 335 horsepower. And that's because it's the 35th anniversary of BMW's win here, which
that's 2 quarts in a pint pot, isn't it? 335 horsepower 1 Series. Dear Lord, that is going to make the 118D look fairly slow and pedestrian. Excellent.
So you saw it here first, here on Eurosport tonight.
Okay, and we are
Daytona.
looking at almost a full field pit peel-off, led by the 10, and following round is the 8. Don't forget
It's a perfect time. We're 83 minutes into the race. 50 minutes is when we reckon they're stopping. So it's 103 minutes into the race. So I should say 1 hour 40.
Yeah.
So we're bang on schedule for the pit stops anyway. There's the 10 car, SunTrust car.
That's right, our race leader. No driver change again.
Yeah, this is all coming into their hands at the moment, isn't it? Wayne Taylor's team there. SunTrust, of course, the Orlando banks all over Florida have been sponsoring Wayne for the last 10 years. Right.
What did you say, Mark? What did you say?
No, it's just a quick oil
It's all
change.
going into their hands. The bodywork comes off quickly for a quick check. You're right.
Yeah. They've run to yellows, so they're not going to be too worried, are they?
They've lost a couple of places already. 2 or 3 prototypes will go by them, but as you say, they won't worry too much about that. Pat Long will go by in the Lizards car. Antonio Garcia, the Spirit of Daytona Coyote, going really well. Oz Negro went by as well. But it's the 55 that stayed out, and the Lizards car has not gone by.
I think Max stayed on board, didn't he? But I didn't see a driver change.
I didn't see a driver change either. Long stop for Pat Long. Oh. They left some fluid, because they'll have over-topped the tank when it was stationary. Yeah. It always kicks a bit out because they don't have a fan to keep it cool. But the Lizards car has dropped a long way down. The 23 car, that is Mark Blundell and Martin Brundle's car, the United Autosports team that they race with in the R8 Audi LMS car. That is being run for them by Michael Shank Racing, with Zach Brown, the team boss, United Autosports, and Mark Patterson, the 4th driver in that crew.
Yeah. Incidentally, while just mentioning Zach Brown, he's been quizzed about the Matek Ford GT team.
Yes, and, read that.
DailySportsCar.com in fact asked him if there's any truth in the rumour he'd looked at purchasing Matek, and he said yep, there is. He said opportunities have risen to acquire the team. We've been in discussions and we'd like to see GT1 as a natural progression of what we're doing. So any potential purchase will be sponsor dependent, so watch that space. I think a penalty we're going to get for this car. Did you notice the wheel went rolling away? I don't know if it just showed that, but
it didn't go rolling into pit road. It went rolling back towards the pit stall, which is not downhill, so I think that was sent that direction by a crew member, so I think they'll be okay.
This is the 2 times Grand Am Championship winning car, but they cannot win the 24 hours. They've tried. They finished 2nd, didn't they, 2006, and that car with Gurney and Co on board, nicknamed the Red Dragon by the team, and one of the most famous names in Grand Am racing, Gainesco, big insurers, right across Florida, very much the same as Matmut you see all around the Le Mans area.
Well, again, you see now, talking about that, you know, it was 2nd here 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, 5 years ago now. and still it's the same chassis. Now, you couldn't say that at Le Mans. You'd be hard-pressed to say that in the GT class at Le Mans. You could not say that about a prototype racing under Le Mans Series regs, because they development there every year. Well, you can see now Robin Liddell's 57 car going back behind pit road, the pit wall. Stevenson Motorsport crew have got a lot more worries than just the fuel mileage of this Camaro. And there they go. Those are all the NASCAR garages, open fronted, open backed, just a long row of garages that all the teams use, one car each, and you can look at what your neighbours are doing, what the guy behind you in any garage is doing. Really opens the whole business up.
And of course you take the car behind the wall so that everyone can jump on it and work on it, just the same as if you put the car in the garage at Le Mans. Once it's off pit lane, you can do what you like within the rules. You can't change certain components, but you can have as many people as you want working on it. In comes the 54 then, GT. That is the 54 is Jeroen Blekemolen coming out of second place for his pit stop in the TRG Black Swan car.
And the other TRG car, I think that was Dominic Farnbacher, flew in right in front of him. That's another, their 66 car. That was the car that led from pole in the GT class. And Watkins Glen back on the Grand Am map as well. Lots and lots of speculation that there may end up being a Formula One race on Staten Island in New York, we're hearing this year, or we're hearing talk about it this week. It won't come this year, but everybody actually secretly hoping it might go somewhere nice, like Watkins Glen and Laguna Seca maybe. Formula One at Laguna, wouldn't you like to see that?
Yeah, it's only a few weeks ago they said that New York race would never happen, and then suddenly, as you said, Staten Island's come up. And you also, if you've been following the news, you'll see they've started groundbreaking at Austin in Texas for the American Grand Prix track there.
Brumos Porsche comes out, the 07 comes alongside it. That's Ollie Gavin's Banner Racing Camaro in front of the 59 car of Hurley Haywood and Mark Lieb, among others.
Yep, Ollie Gavin, of course, a mainstay of Chevrolet racing, London Marathon runner, and fine fellow all round.
Well, let's just run through we talked about this before. 19 British drivers. Mark, just tell me if something goes on. I'll work through from the very top of the field. 02 Ganassi car, Dario Franchitti sharing that one with Scott Dixon and the boys. In the 2 car, another prototype, the Starworks Motorsport 2 car, Glyn Geddy, Scottish Porsche racer, raced in the British GT Championship last year with a great deal of success. Justin Wilson is in Michael Shank Curb Racing 6 car, that Dallara Ford he shares with AJ Allmendinger. Ryan DL in the 8 Starworks Motorsport Riley Ford. Mark Blundell and Martin Brundle, the former Yamaha teammates, and that possibly the biggest joke played on the Japanese, to have Blundell and Brundell in a Japanese speaking factory team. They're in the 23 United Autosports car. Ross Kaiser winning his drive with Doran Racing, the 77 Dallara Ford, and Richard Westbrook is the other prototype driver in the 95 Level 5 Motorsport car we talked about a little earlier. In the GT class, Banner Racing's 07 Camaro, Ollie Gav. 17 Burton Racing Porsche, Nick Tandy in that car. Mark Thomas, you may not know quite so well, he's in the 18 Porsche of Mühlner Motorsport. James Walker, the Jerseyman, his first major sports car outing, he's in the Bullet Racing 22 Porsche. Ryan Lewis in the 32 PR1 BMW. Rob Bell and Tim Sugden in the 48 Paul Miller Porsche. Glyn Geddy also driving the 56 Bennett Racing Ferrari if it survives its early offs. Robin Liddell in the 57 Camaro that's behind the wall. Adam Christodoulou we talked about in the 70 Speed Sport Mazda. And Matthew Marsh, who for many years has lived in Hong Kong. He's racing for Auto House in the 88 Camaro. And an old commentary buddy of mine from the days when I had knee socks and a commentary box out the back of Beyond at various different circuits, but he's having a great time racing in that car as well. So 19 British drivers in the field. Again, go to grandam.com and follow their fortune.
Let's just pick up on Glyn Geddy for a moment. A lot of you probably know him through Autosport. He's BRDC Autosport Rising Star, one of David Brabham's clan of young drivers they bring on, from 20 years old, from Aberdeen, one of the youngest drivers in the race, in fact. Nick Tandy, another British star, and I'm very proud, I was on the panel, Guild of Motoring Writers. We elected him our driver of the year last year for his outstanding performances in the Porsche Cup and his Formula 3 drives the previous year. Of course, the year his brother was killed, and in a road accident, Nick then carried the team on, and of course he's got some real clout behind him here. Burton Racing, which is owned by Claudio Burton. It's actually Franz Conrad and Chris Crawford, used to be ADA. They're the engineers behind that car. So
right, okay. Because of course Chris Crawford's worked with Conrad for the last 4 or 5 years in Super Cup.
Yeah, and this, in fact, that Burton car, the 17 car, was the Alex Job racing Porsche, which ran here last year. So TRG in, that's a 66 car. This doesn't look like much going on there.
No, well, that was Dominic Farnbasher who started it. It's not Lucas Luer in the car, but there has been a driver change. So whether it's Tim George or Bob Keating, I'm not sure.
They've come in as leaders.
Yes, they came on as leaders, and wholesale pit stops going on. 66 has got 67 parked in front of it, and they go out as well. 67 car, the fastest in qualifying. Andy Lally qualified that car, got bumped to the back of the grid, shares with Wolf Hensler, Spencer Pompelli, Brendan Gagan and Stephen Berto. And there's the car that's run second and first here for a lot of the opening hour. Craig Stanton's 44 Magnus Racing car being blasted off pit road. And that sideways, I'm betting money that's Austria's Richard Lietz at the wheel.
Yeah, this car is probably the most factory-supported Porsche here after Brumos this weekend. Magnus Racing out of Salt Lake City, run by John Potter, and somehow he's managed to, year after year, attract Porsche Motorsport's attention. So as he said, he's got those 2 factory drivers on board, and they really looking good. Craig Stanton himself, he was the 2005 GT champion, so that is a very strong team. Let's just keep watching.
There's Kevin Buckler with the familiar Burt Reynolds moustache. And he is such a fun guy. He really loves this race. Let's see if we can catch up with him now. He knows Brian Till and all the guys from his time originally in the American Le Mans series, and then of course in the Grand Am series as well. So we'll catch up with him in a moment. You can see your relay at the top. Mark Blundell is on track for the first time in the Daytona 24 hours. They're in 8th place as the field gets the green once more. So that's good news for United Autosport's top 8 place. 95 revisits pit road, and it's the Krone racing car of Nick Johnson that has the lead. The Lola out front. Very different looking front end treatment to the more traditional look of the other DP cars, particularly the Riley, of course, like the 5 car there in 3rd place.
So Sam Smith from Lola and all you guys in Huntingdon who are watching tonight, here's your chance. You're leading the race for the moment. Almost got bumped then, but great job there.
Well, we got the single Lola ahead of the single Coyote with all the Rileys snapping behind, and the Delaras as well.
Absolutely how it should be. This Lola, of course, it's the only Lola racing. It's prepared by Krone Racing at their base in Houston. David Brown's the team manager, and Nick Johnson, who very useful peddler all over the years, he's out front from Paul Edwards and David Donahue.
Yeah, Nick Johnson spent a lot of time racing Porsches in GT racing, but at the moment a real battle on his hands with Paul Edwards in that 90 car, the all but unliveried Spirit of Daytona Racing Coyote with its Chevrolet engine. And look at that, no wonder the 95 car came in, had a bit of a check-up in the queue, into the wall. Great spot there by the director.
Are we going to get another yellow? Because there is debris on the track at that point.
There is debris on the track, but there's a hell of a race going on as well. And here around the 77 Office Depot car comes the 9. That's a good move. That's the Joao Barbosa, Terry Borchella, Christian Fittipaldi car, Max Papis as well. JC France, the only one there who's not guaranteed absolute world-class quality in that car. That's a really strong lineup.
Did you see the speed that Terry Borchella was carrying through the bus stop? That was amazing.
Terry Borchella, great GT racer turned great prototype racer, really good fun guy, and yeah, plenty of speed on board with the SunTrust car. And the 10 car is in 7th place. Ryan Briscoe now at the helm. There you go, there's the Aussie. He's really made his home in North America over the last few years as well, hasn't he? And damage to the back of the Lizards car. That is Pat Long's machine.
Yeah, he's been thumped.
Contact at the back, yeah. The problem with prototypes in this racing, as at Le Mans, in fact it's Seth Neiman now at the wheel of that car, is that they stop so much quicker than the GT cars, and just occasionally drivers forget. Doran Racing's car now, this is the one that Ross Kaiser shares with Brian Frizzell, Matt Bell and Henri Richard. And who is at the helm of the 77 car? Mark's going to have to scroll down the page a bit because there's 48 cars in the entry. Now, was the 77 the one got clipped by the 95?
Matt Bell.
Let's look at him checking up here. 95 goes, yeah. 77 goes up high. He did get... No, that was the Lizard's car.
Yeah, then I think the other...
77 was right behind, wasn't involved, unless they ran over Debris.
Yeah, I think could well be Debris.
So, and...
Paul Edwards leads.
No. Does he? Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he does indeed. Paul Edwards has the lead and pulling away fast.
Nick Johnson's fallen back to third behind David Donoghue. Has he had a bit of a moment? Because he's just lost 2 places.
Yeah, must have.
So this is Spirit of Daytona, which is just up the road at Holly Hill on Daytona Beach. That's where they build the cars, leading on their home track. What a great moment for them. Get the photos, lads, and then pack up and go home.
Well, no, don't give up that easy. Get the photos and keep the memories, and then fight for the next 22.5 hours or 21.5 hours or whatever it is. It's 5:28 p.m. Eastern, and that lime green Lola seems to be pretty wayward at the moment. Nick Johnson struggling with that car, shares with owner Tracy Crone, Nick Minassian, quick Nick Minassian, and Ricardo Zonta. So again, Tracy Crone, the owner driver, gentleman driver in his 850s, and of average speed for a gentleman driver, enthusiastic as all get out, but 3 really strong teammates.
Seth Neiman then in, had that whack in the rear. We think that's either that or Debris. I suspect it was at the start. We didn't quite see what happened.
He got whacked from behind by the 95.
I think because everything else is happening in front of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, he came up high to avoid a car that was checking up in front of him.
Yeah.
95 got into the tail of the Lizard's car. Just checking that suspension is okay. It seems to be. Sure, Seth would have been on the radio going, it's shaking my eyeballs out if it was wobbling that badly. Because you really feel it at speeds like they get up to instantly on the banking here.
Now, is this car...
They're being held.
Well, this car's got to do 200 miles an hour in a few minutes.
They're being held by an official, and the crew aren't happy with that. Come on, guys, everything's out of the way. Is it a penalty? Looks like it may be for causing an avoidable accident. Well, I would say that's pretty harsh in a safety car queue, as he didn't do the hitting.
I don't think it was her.
It's hard to drive into a car if you're going forwards using the back end of your own car. Not impossible, I'll grant you, but it is a lot harder.
And that, remember, was the 2009 winner when it was the Brumos Porsche. So Flying Lizards making their first foray into prototype racing. Been very successful so far. Pole position, led the race, but it's going a little bit pear-shaped now.
Well, Guy Edwards out front. David Donoghue started his sports car racing career as a factory Corvette racer, and of course his father, one of the great American legends. David Donoghue has been racing now in sports cars for the better part of the last 15 years. Bill Auberlen leads in the BMW in the GT class from Dane Cameron. Haven't talked about the 41 Dempsey Racing car. That, of course, is Dr. Gorgeous with his team, Dempsey Racing, running a couple of cars. Patrick Dempsey himself in the Mazda RX-8, the 40 and the 41 car. Yeah, they're using the telestrator during the breaks for fun. The 41 car we were just looking at, Dane Cameron, James Gooey, Ian James, Don Kitch Jr. and Dave Lacey, and that is an enthusiastic amateur crew, really is.
So we're riding at the moment with level 5 motorsport entry. Which car is this? The first the level 5 at the moment.
This is the
Christophe Boucher.
Yeah.
If this is the number 9 car.
Yeah. Oh, this is the 55 car, is it?
If it's the 55
car.
Yeah, in 9th place, Christophe Boucher. BMW power.
No, orange mirrors, that's the 95 car. That's 95. The Ryan Hunter Ray car that's got the camera.
Right, that's the one that's a little bit further down, is it? 95. Well,
that's the one that came in on pit road with that damage, isn't it, after the shunt? Shares with Rafa Matteson, Richard Westbrook. Yeah,
he's running 17th with Scott Tucker at the moment on board out of 18 runners. So
well, the car didn't do any real qualifying, and Westy must be worrying that it's not going to do much racing if they keep running into stationary objects. There's the 43 car, Team Salen's second entry. This just saw the 42 had a big head-on collision, or a big front-end collision, remember? 43 car, same 5 drivers, 3 from the Nonamaker family.
And that's
now parked.
Is Joe Salen on board, the meat packer?
Yeah.
Salen, of course, famous for its meats and burgers all across the Chicago area, isn't it?
Not to be confused with Salem, famous for its witch hunts, of course, not too far from the Chicago area. Around the high side of the 22 car we go. That's Darrell Young and James Walker's car. They share with Eric Lux and Brian Wan, the Bullet Racing Porsche. James Walker, the Jerseyman. Jersey's fastest export, he likes to claim. And I'm certainly not going to argue with him. Around the outside of the 88 car as well. That's the Autohouse car. Matthew Marsh, another of our 19 British drivers. I'm really doing quite well on the object recognition of Brits at the moment. This is a good effort by the BMW to show us as many Brits in the field as we can. Who are we catching now? The 40 car. No Brits on board. This is Patrick Dempsey's own car. Well, let's get by there and find some more British drivers to talk about.
Well, how about Andy Prio? I'd have thought he was Jersey's fastest export. But
Guernsey. Don't start with that. Don't start. That's like calling a Kiwi an Aussie or a Scot an Englishman.
Okay.
No. Guernsey, donkeys, Jersey. I don't know what Jerseymen call themselves. Anyway, Guernsey, Jersey, never the trail. And let's not even start on Sark. A racing driver from Sark, of course, famously carless. That would be something. Growing up on an island with no cars and then becoming a racing driver, that would be a good story for me. Well, to interrupt that otherwise rather interesting stream of thought, let's do exactly that. We'll take a commercial pause. We've got lots more of this to come, and if you don't laugh, we'll sing. Welcome back to live coverage of the Rolex 24 Daytona here on Eurosport and British Eurosport. Bill Sweedler getting up to speed there. Just spun his Porsche off the track. A 65 Chris Smith Racing 911 GT3 RSR that he shares with, well, predominantly Shane Lewis, you'll know. Tyler Wolfson, Mitch Pagery and Tom Sheehan, you probably won't. Again, just a fraction too much curb on turn-in. And that poked the back end up in the air, and once you separate the tires from the ground, even the greatness of Porsche engineering is not going to stop that engine making its presence felt.
Right, the next problem we're going to have, Martin, is the sunset. As you can see, it's a gorgeous Florida sunset. It's starting to sink down in the west. The light is going to be in their eyes quite spectacularly for a few minutes, and we've actually reached a time of 5:30 in the afternoon now, and I think we've probably got about 30 minutes of light left.
Let's see if we can hear from Boris Said.
Yeah, I mean, Turner did a great job on this M3. It's a brand new car, and this track is so great. I was pushing really hard just to see how the tires were, and the Continental tires are great. And I think we had a really good, consistent car over the long haul. So knock on wood right now, it's really good. And long way to go, but I can't wait to get back in that thing. It's a blast to drive. And before I forget, I want to say hi to my wife, Deanne, and Boris Jr. watching at home. I always forget those guys. Love you guys. I'll see you on Monday.
Talking about tires, we've seen a blowout on one of the Mazdas, the 70 car, the 02 car, 2 blowouts at the right rear. Any ideas from your perspective why we might be seeing that?
I mean, it might be from the curbs. The new curbs are a little sharp, so you got to either get all on them or stay off them. But, I mean, for us, the Continental tires have been really good. We haven't seen any trouble at all with our car.
Go get some rest.
Thanks.
Rest, Boris? You don't know him like we know him. He's not going to rest at all, Chris Neville.
Well, and Hooters is just across the track from the Speedway. Well, you'll find him in there in half an hour's time.
I had no idea Hooters was just across the road from the track. Now then, here is the battle outside the top 5. This is John Pugh in the 60 car, the dark red car. There it is. Right behind him in the Gainsco 99. A lap back, the 99 car now, I think.
Here we are.
Behind him was Ryan Briscoe in the 10. Now he is battling with the 60 for position at the moment. John Pugh in 6th, Ryan Briscoe in 7th, and Christophe Bouchou in 8th place in the 55 Level 5 Motorsport car, the one that hasn't hit quite as much as the 95.
And look how quickly we're losing the light. It's such a quick sunset here in Florida. It goes from light to dark in about 20 minutes, and here we go.
Battle for the lead, still on, still Paul Edwards in that blue and black 90 car. The Coyote, the Spirit of Daytona Racing entry, and David Donahue still really pushing up. Do you know what? that just needs a bit of Sunoco livery, doesn't it, really? And suddenly it's his father and Roger Penske, the chief, all over again. They used to plan every year, what are we going to race at Daytona? It was a big part of their calendar. It's been a big part of America's motorsport calendar for the better part of 50 years now. And his son, I'm really pleased to see racing still and carrying the family flag and racing for the lead as the golden track glints in the sunshine. But yeah, we are in the last knockings, aren't we? 38 Eastern. Sun will be down in half an hour.
You talk about the colour schemes. Look at the car in front of him. No sponsorship at all. That Spirit of Daytona, Coyote Chevrolet. The Coyote, of course, Eddie Cheever's team. Was in the old days AJ Foyt's brand. Eddie was given permission by AJ to use the brand as long as it ran well. It is running well. It's leading Daytona. Spirit of Daytona, as we said, a local team formed in 1987 by Troy Fleece and Doug Goad and Paul Edwards, Antonio Garcia. Sasha Masson shows just the strength of drivers, despite the fact it's not a Porsche. They got Masson on board. It's a Coyote Chevrolet, and the car is prepared by Pratt & Miller, so that gives you some idea of just how good everything is. There he goes.
Well, of course, despite his heritage with Porsche and his undoubted speed, Sasha Masson is no longer a factory Porsche driver. Incredibly, they managed to drop him and keep Martin Ragnar. Lord knows why, but they decided
the braking really got slippery there. Also, the traction got less. We had to manage it a little bit more with the throttle, and that's tough out there.
We certainly saw you working the brakes. I imagine inside you were telling Kevin, I'm changing front bias, rear bias, trying to get the balance. It didn't look like you had the same brake balance that you had in practice and qualifying.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, the track changes every hour. I mean, it's very weird, and I have to always change my brake balance so I don't have any lockup.
Well, as long as the next guy in likes where you set it, it'll be good. You take some rest now. But that's the thing, guys. You know, as this track, it's a virgin surface.
Justin Bell, former racer, started 7 times, including a couple of starts with his dad in the Daytona 24 Hours. On board with Ben Keating, started first in that 66 car that you just heard from Dominic Farnbasher. They share with Tim George and Lucas Law, ladies and gentlemen. He will be on the racetrack later on, and I'm sure that he and Dominic will do a lot of hours in the dark when the traffic is harder to miss and harder to stay out of the way of.
Difficult to believe Dominic's still only 25 years old. I mean, he seems to have been around racing for years. Do you remember, Martin, 2006 Le Mans, his dad Horst said, the boy has to go back to college tomorrow. He's still in the middle of his studies. I mean,
absolutely.
And he's only 19 years old then.
Yeah. And of course he came over with the family team with Horst to race in North America at that age, and yeah, it seems like he's been around forever because he's been racing in professional sports car racing for the better part of a decade now. Now there's the 55 car we talked about. Christophe Bouchou in that car now, running in 7th place, right up behind Ryan Briscoe in the 6th. So that is in the 10 car rather, in 6th position. So that is a close battle in between them. They've got this car. This is the red roof, which means it's the blue nose of the O2. So red roof means it's the red nose of the O2 car. It's Dario Franchitti. That car with 2 punctures already in the race, way off the lead lap.
Yeah, just Christophe Bouchou, of course, we mentioned earlier, this is his 30th year of racing. He again is one of those 23 outright winners of the Daytona 24 Hours here. He won in 95 with Jürgen Lassig, Johnny Lavaggi and Marco Werner in that Kramer Porsche Spiders. That's
the Lizard's car off again, and one of the GT, is this the GT Porsche that was off? The Lizard's car was off. That Ferrari has been abandoned there, the Bennett Racing Ferrari that was started by Jean-Francois Demoulin.
He's damaged the front this time. He's got the front bodywork rubbing on the front tyre.
And that means
the splitter's collapsed.
Yeah, the splitter. Well, this is the problem when you go ploughing, is that the ploughs aren't as strong as metal ones, and it is a TRG car. That's the pole sitting car. We were just talking to Dominic Farnbasher. It's Ben Keating on board. And there he is.
Oh dear.
Gets it going again, but he's got a right rear gone down. And in fact, he is behind the wall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's behind the wall. Kevin's on the radio.
Kevin going, come round to us.
Drive down the main car park, turn left through the concession stands, get a hot dog on the way, and back into the garages.
Yeah, he's coming around through the paddock.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Garage. Yeah, you can get in from the back as well. All the haulers, all the campers there. behind the grandstands. So he was going in the opposite direction to the racetrack. And
how many times have we seen that?
And there is the Lizard's car. It has only dropped the splitter, but they'll have to put a new nose on. It's lost a light as well. You don't want that at night either.
This is riding on board with Ben Keating, and bang, he gets hit from behind, doesn't he? So that's the Lizard's in trouble again.
Now, did he, or was he losing that on his own? Yes, he may have been picked up off the ground by the nose of the prototype. That's a very good point, a good read of that. Well, of course, they've had a right rear puncture, and it's trailing its nose now, the Lizard's car. And there is the Ferrari that looped her. So the Ferrari looped around, stopped it all. The Porsche went off in avoidance, and the Lizard's car went off in avoidance of the avoidance.
So we take it all back. It wasn't the Lizard's car's fault, but he has gone ploughing and done this damage to his front splitter, as you say. New nose called for. Lizards are going to run out of body parts if they're not careful. They're looking at new rear wing, I think, at some stage. At what point do Grand Am officials step in and say you're going to have to do some body replacements?
If it looks dangerous, it does. They don't have a modesty panel like they do in the prototypes in Le Mans style racing, Le Mans rules racing. So at the moment he's just crawling down the backstretch. And has that ever felt longer? There's the Jefferson Motorsport crew with that Camaro.
Come back to the garage. Mike, what is going on with the car?
You know, we're still trying to diagnose it, to be honest. Robin was doing great. Got into turn 1 and the power just shut off, and we lost all fuel pressure. So somehow he was able to nurse it back around. We brought it in, did a driver change, topped it back up with fuel. We thought maybe we lost the pressure in the pumps. It just wouldn't go. So we brought it back in here, started ripping all the pumps apart. And as we've gotten further and further into the data, we think maybe now it's something in the ignition. And to be honest, we're still kind of lost. You know, we pulled the whole fuel cell apart. We have fuel pressure, so we know that's not the problem. And we got everybody from GM Racing and Pratt & Miller and, you know, all just trying to diagnose it. I've never been out of a race, the 24, this early before, so it's going to make it for a very long night.
So an electrical problem like this can typically go on for a long, long time. What are the steps you have to do to try and work your way through the puzzle?
Well, we start by looking at the data and try to, you know, go backwards and figure out what happened first. And what we see right now is we had ignition voltage right before the failure, and then we lost ignition voltage. So now what we're looking at is maybe something in the ignition switch, maybe replace a switch, maybe we hardwire the switch. You know, we just don't know.
Yeah, and everybody from the factory GM Racing is over here. Gary Pratt up at the front of the car from Pratt & Miller Engineering, also over here looking at...
Chris Neville with a report there, and inside the garage you can see they are desperately trying to find where the electricity is leaking out. And this is, you know, a common symptom with road cars as with racing cars. If it don't go, A, has it got petrol? Yes. B, are any major parts on the floor? The gearbox, the engine? No. Right, it's electronics. It's always electronics. It's the joy and the curse of modern motoring. The 45 Lizards car has made it back to the garage. No sign yet of where the Racers Group car has got, that is currently motoring around the snake pit in the infield somewhere. And again, Mitcham Motorsport in trouble. Under braking, whoa, right in front there.
Was he tapped from behind, I wonder?
No, it didn't sound like a hit, just lost it.
Strange place to lose it.
Change the lead.
All right, as you say, David Donahue goes into the lead. The Action Express Racing Riley Porsche. This is the team that was formerly Brumos, is now morphed into Action Express as far as DP is concerned. Brumos have gone the GT route this year. And the number 5.
So there's so much going on, you know, and it is like Le Mans, isn't it? People say, well, how do you stay awake for 24 hours at Le Mans? Well, because it just never stops coming at you. And, you know, a change of lead we missed because we were looking at a story that developed somewhere else and another car and a different, and, you know, there is enough going on with any single one car in a 24-hour race to fill the 24 hours. Never mind 49
on the racetrack, but the car's in the garage, so big problems. What happened there, Seth?
Came through the kink, that's turn 4, if you have a track map. And there were 3 cars spinning in front of me. One of the Ferraris, I think, sliding across the track. One guy on the edge of the track and one further in the dirt. Because the cars tracking to the right, really the only way to try and avoid them is to go right. Did that. When we came back on the track, there's a little lip there and seems to have damaged a radiator or a water line.
So you guys will be back in the race. That should probably just take about 10 minutes to fix, typically.
I have no idea. We will be back in the race, but I don't know how long it will take to fix.
Okay, Bob. I'm going to go take a look at the car and see if I can figure out how long it's going to take to get the 45 back.
Seth Neiman, the classic racing driver. I broke it, I don't know how to fix it, I just give it back to the guys. Well, that's really tough, you know. He did all the accident avoidance, but coming back off the dirt, a step up onto the tarmac, and that's taken the nose off. 66, that was the car that was on the infield looking for someone, anyone to help. Hello, hello. Sat-nav wasn't working at that stage, but it's gone back out. More bits falling off it, but Ben Keating is at the helm. And of course, he was the first car going off that Seth has just talked about, avoiding that looping Ferrari. We've already got one Ferrari parked out, the Bennett Racing car, and the other remaining Ferrari in the race, the 81 car, the Dragon Speed car, that was the one that was facing the wrong way and triggered it all off.
Just been passed by the sister car, the 67 TRG car, as he goes back out to track around the International Horseshoe. And sorry,
just a little caption there. New fastest lap in the GT class, Richard Leitz in the 44 car. Remember when he left the pit apron sideways? We saw in the pit lane. I said, I'll give you money. That's Richard Leitz in the 44 car, and so it would appear that it is. It just had all the hallmarks of the Austrian firing it into the race.
Just turned in a 1 minute 49.7, which let's just compare that with what happened in qualifying. The top GT time in qualifying was 1:48.7, so they're within 1 second of best qualifying times now.
Looking here at Patrick Dempsey, and of course the Hollywood actor came raced at Le Mans last year. He's been making more and more sports car outings, but of course, A, he's acting, B, he's directing. Flew last night to the Sundance Festival, flew back this morning for the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and he flew to Sundance because his first feature film was making its debut there, and he wanted to be there to see what everybody thought of it and take the applause of the crowd. Now then,
let's just tell you while on that, he directed the film as well as acted, and it's called Flypaper. And do you know what he gets to do? He gets to kiss Ashley Judd in the film.
Hey, that's tough work, you know. But I couldn't take the pay cut, so we're going to have to let him do it, aren't we?
Ashley's husband, Dario Franchitti, has been avoiding him like the plague all weekend. By the way, Patrick is starting work in the next few months on a new film. It's a motorsport film called Art of Racing in the Rain. It's based on the Garth Stein novel, famous novel in America. So there's going to be another racing movie coming up fairly soon.
I was hoping you were going to say based on the life of Hans Stuck. Now there's a Racing in the Rain film I want to see. Jokes and all, just been passed by the GT car that is fastest on track at the moment, the 44 Magnus Racing Porsche of Richard Leitz. Craig Stanton held the lead in the 44 car. Patrick Dempsey, they started 14th. They are have been down as low as 21st, up as high as 10th. And of course, you get all those sort of cycles going through the pits. Now then, that is the Flying Lizards car having a full front end overhaul. Gold leaf on everything to keep the heat rejection from the front mounted radiator away from the driver, keep the cockpit safe. Bill Auberland still leads in the GT class, leads up to third, ahead of Anthony Lazzaro at the wheel now of that 69 SpeedSource Mazda. And here is your GT class leader. BMW is absolutely flying. Bill Auberland at the helm, taken over from long-time friend Boris Said. And they've got Paul Dall'Anna and Matt Plum. You imagine the top two names on that list will do about 3/4 of the driving. And around the 10 car goes 95 or 55. It's a mirrors job on this. 95 has the orange mirrors, and all the damage. 55 has the yellow mirrors. And the SunTrust car is losing speed. Now they were in 5th place. Mark Blundell is now 5th. Ryan Briscoe's now down to 7th. So they've lost in that. That was a pass for position we just saw with Christophe Bouchou going by him for 6th.
He lost 2 seconds on the last lap for some reason, so we shall no doubt find out why in a minute. It's going slow, as you said. Look at this darkness starting to come down very, very quickly now. You can see the headlights on the track.
Yeah, floodlights are on, sun has gone, but it's still very bright in the sky. This is the quick look at the TRG car making its way back through the paddock. We'll see that when speed come back for a break. Well, whatever afflicted the 10 car doesn't seem to be worrying it too much. Captain Grumpy, Christophe Bouchou up ahead. Maybe looking marginally less grumpy, having picked up a place and moved up to 6th. And this is the 55 car, yellow mirrors on level 5 motorsport. This is Bouchou coming down off the speedway into the bus stop. On the bus stop, it's a 4-corner sequence, left, right, right, left to take you back onto the back stretch at Daytona. And this is the view of the infield on the first part, the International Horseshoe, where we've seen most of the incidents.
So this is what 31-degree banking feels like. Drivers say they don't actually notice it once they're on it because carrying 200 miles an hour, the car just sits there, but you try and walk up it, it is extraordinary.
I tell you, I haven't been on banking quite that steep, but riding in a passenger in a NASCAR stock car at Las Vegas, which is 28 degrees, I think, when you come out of the pit road and bump up onto it, you think the car's going to roll down over on the driver's side. It's so steep, and you're hanging on so that you don't fall on him as you go around the first corner. By the time you're down the backstretch on a 2-mile oval and you're at speed going over 120, 130, 140 on the first lap, you feel like the driver is leaning on the car on your side. It feels not only level, it actually feels like you're leaning over, sort of going downhill on the outside of the car. So yeah, the banking really holds the cars in, but generates huge G-forces, and trying to find a way past this GT class leading BMW, no, it's not the BMW, in fact, it's not the class leading BMW anyway. No, it's proving a little hard. That is the other M3, isn't it? That's the Mulner. We've
got a couple of them running, haven't we? So,
yeah.
The Mulner Racing one.
No, that's the Mulner Racing running. That's the PR1 car. That's Ryan Lewis's car. In fact, the BMW M6. Well, they're running an M6, and the yellow and blue one, Turner Motorsports, running an M3 shell. I imagine both probably with a BMW V8 under the body of their tube frame chassis. Looks neat as you go by. GT class still led by Bill Ilberlin. Here is our overall race leader, though. It's the 5 of David Donoghue. The Riley chassis with the Porsche engine leads by Mark Watt. 4-5 tenths of a second at the moment from the car right behind it in that shot. The Coyote Chevy, driven by Paul Edwards. He's having a really good stint, Paul Edwards, as well. Having a great run in the lead, and now keeping up with leader David Donoghue.
I have to say, this is the best race I have ever seen Spirit of Daytona have. We watched them with their Corvettes over the years, but this is just outstanding performance here this afternoon. Good for everybody. Paul Edwards, of course, very much a Grand Am GT racer throughout all those years. Raced for BMW, raced for Chevrolet, and also raced for Chrysler, didn't he? And here we are, Paul now second in the field behind David Donoghue. And David Donoghue, remember, 2 years ago won this race on the 40th anniversary of his father, the late great Mark Donoghue, winning the same event.
Well, now they're 2 of only 3 cars in the field that have got a 3-strong driver lineup. Everybody else with 4 or 5 drivers in the cars. But the Spirit of Daytona Racing, he shares with Antonio Garcia and Sasha Masson, that 90 car. The 5 car, now beg your pardon, that's got a 4-strong lineup. David Donoghue shares with Darren Law, Buddy Rice and Bert Frizzell. AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell, slip of the tongue, and Justin Wilson are the guys who are in a 3-car lineup.
Stress on the inside shoulder of the tire. When you do that, it heats up a little bit too much and can fail. Now, I'm also in the garage down here at Flying Lizard. They're trying to finish up the repairs on this car. They've got a new splitter on it. They've got a new radiator going in. This is typically a repair that takes about 2 to 4 minutes, but because one of the bolts sheared off where the splitter attaches to the chassis, it's taken them about 10 minutes. They finally got that bolt out. They've got a new splitter on. They're going to get a new radiator in this car, and hopefully this car will be back in the fight within the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Saw the driver lineup, Johannes.
Thanks, Chris Neville. Mark, you and I are of an age where we worked a lot on our own cars, and you know that extracting a broken stud when you're changing a head or something, that's at least 3 cups of tea, a full hour of swearing, an extractor tap. You know, that's a whole day's work, and they're doing it there in 2 or 3 minutes. And that's why they're doing that, and we're doing this.
And then at the end of the day, you take it down to the garage to do it. So,
you always get a good stud extractor.
I mean, let's just have a look quickly at what Seth Neiman did there. He got involved in someone else's off at this very point. In fact, we're looking at now. Seth did that damage to the car. You look at the lineup, they've got 2 factory drivers on board, Jörg Bergmeister, Pat Long. You got Johannes van Overbeek, who again is an incredibly quick driver. And you do wonder if maybe it was a tactical error putting Seth in the car. I know he owns the team.
Yeah, Johannes and Seth, they own the team. Seth is a good, safe pair of hands. As he said, all he did was avoid the accident. He didn't damage it going off. Ironically, he damaged it coming back on where the grass is lower than the track. That That's not his creating.
No, but
that is
you have
just
to ask
something that
yourself,
happens.
would a pro driver have handled that differently? I just
Well,
thought
the grass wouldn't have been any higher at that stage coming back on if it had been Johannes, but everybody would have said, well, that's just bad luck. Because it's Seth, they say, well, that's what happens when you have a gentleman driver. What happens when you have a gentleman driver is you have a car at all. And Seth is no mean peddler. There's Tracy Krone's car, that lime green car, the Lola,
still
in
third.
Third place rather. Nick Jonsson, Terry Borchella behind, giving chase as well. Really good racing going on. And of course, predictably, we're going to have to leave it, but we're only leaving it briefly for 15-minute period just to catch up with the news. There's Terry Borchella, so this is third, fourth, fifth, the United Autosports car. Billy Blundell there,
good boy.
proceeding in an easterly direction onto the international loop, and right behind, Dario Franchitti. Now, he's harassing them, but he's not actually chasing them for position. His car is at least a lap down.
Yeah, now look at this. This is, we've reached nearly 6 o'clock in the evening here. It's still almost 70 degrees. Sun is starting to go down. By the time we come back, I think we'll be in black.
Dario unlaps himself momentarily from Mark Blundell. The battle for third rages in front, but that 0-2 car has got a lot of ground to make up. We will be back on the other side of the news bulletin. Why don't you make yourself a cup of tea? Stay with us here on Eurosport 2 for more from Daytona after this.